Good afternoon and welcome to the News and Records Backstage Beat, where I have the privilege of interviewing a couple members of the ALT, the Irish folk music supergroup. With us today on the left is Eamon O'Leary, originally from Dublin, now in New York City, guitarist, songwriter, singer, and bouzouki player?
Bouzouki, that's right.
That's right? Okay.
That would be this fella here.
That's right.
Yeah.
We'll get to that guy later, right? Also with us today is Mick McCauley from Kilkenny.
Hello.
He's a player of the guitar, the melodeon, accordion, which you can explain a little bit about how close they really are and what they are.
Yeah, it's really just a label. Like this instrument that I play in Ireland is called the two-row button accordion, but in England it's called a melodeon. Yeah, in Ireland we just call the single-row version of this a melodeon. So.
Now, for those of you not that familiar with the alt, Eamon is one of the founding members, and Mick joined the group this tour. So I wanted to start with the quote that's on the homepage of the alt website, which I think is fantastic, and you can both address one as a longtime member and one as the new guy on stage. And the quote is this. It's from Acoustic Guitar, and they wrote, "The alt's round-robin instrumental interplay is telepathic and miraculous." So I want to know if there's some telepathy at work when you're on stage.
That's one way of describing it, yes. Originally, when we were making a recording, we did kind of really work out the parts. You know, we arranged things pretty carefully for a recording. But then when we do get on stage, sometimes it's a little looser, the approach sometimes. And often what we like to do, for example, in the set tonight, we threw in a couple of things that we'd never really worked on much before. So there was a certain amount of telepathy going on the stage.
And some miracles too, right?
Some miracles.
For which I was very grateful for that telepathy, because at times I did not know what was going to happen next.
Well, so how does that yeah, I saw you sort of looking down at the sheet as I was reading to say, what is the quote? So you're new playing with John and Eamon. So why don't you explain a little bit of that and how it's been to get in there and.
Well, it's been fantastic. I can start there. I got a phone call a few months ago from John Doyle, who was asking me to come and play this wonderful festival, the National Folk Festival, and it was because the regular third member of the trio, the Alt, is Nuala Kennedy, and Nuala is expecting a baby in November very soon and is on a no-fly list for that reason. And so I guess maybe John had this false, vague memory that my voice was very high-pitched, and maybe that I would look good in a skirt. But so he called me and thought it was a good idea to ask me to come, and I was very delighted to take him up on the offer, because I know myself and Eamon know each other a long time from New York City, and I had played many years ago on the road for about 4 years with John Doyle as part of the group Solace, and so we go back a long way. And anytime I would get an opportunity to play with either Eamon or John, let alone the two of them together, I jumped at it. So here I am, and we've just finished up our last set. Then we had a great weekend.
Well, obviously the roots of this band are in Ireland. All the members are born in Ireland, but there's a real North Carolina connection. Eamon, could you tell the folks a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, John lives now in Asheville, North Carolina, in the western part of the state, and has done now for many years, I think 15 or more years. And just outside of Asheville, on the campus of Warren Wilson College, there's a great gathering every year called the Swannanoa Gathering, and it's 5 weeks of musical instruction, basically, and performance. And every week has a different theme. And for years and years now, John, myself, Nuala, and many other of our colleagues in the Irish music world go down for one particular week in July, and we teach music, people of all ages. There are concerts, there are dances, and it's just a fantastic week. And Nuala, John, and myself had been going for years, and we would often found ourselves, singing and playing together and putting together little sets for the concert or sitting on the porch and singing late into the night. And we found that we all had a love of harmony singing, and the three-part harmony was something that just is not being done a lot in traditional music. There are a couple of great examples of bands that have done it, but that was something that we kind of wanted to make the sort of cornerstone of the band, as well as all the instrumental stuff, the jigs and the reels. But that singing would kind of come to the fore, and the harmony singing in particular, which is then why when Nuala couldn't do the gig, we thought instantly of Mick, because as well as being a very fine accordion player, he's a great singer and harmony singer too. So yeah, every summer in the mountains of North Carolina, we'd get together and rehearse. And we actually recorded our album in North Carolina, just outside of Asheville, in a small cabin in the woods out there. It's a very beautiful setting. So there's definite kinship with this state. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense, because there's certainly a kinship throughout this region with the connection from Irish music to bluegrass, and I know you all saw some bluegrass here this weekend and enjoyed that, right?
Absolutely, and for years I used to come down to the Mount Airy Fiddlers Gathering, which is also here in North Carolina, because I love the old-time music from the Appalachians. So I would come down, and I picked up the 5-string banjo, and I learned that, and I would come and spend time down here learning and working on that music as well. So, no, I've always loved my visits to the South, yeah.
Well, you guys are really world travelers, as we were talking about, and you split your time between the States and in the U.S. Mick, you've been in how many states?
All of them, apart from, I played in every state apart from Hawaii. I'm waiting to tick Hawaii off the list.
So if anyone has
There's
a
any
connection.
Absolutely, we're open to offers right now.
How many continents have you all played on?
Well, I've been out as far as, I love going out to Japan. I've been out in Japan a few times, and obviously Europe here. So I've never been to Africa yet. I'd love to get down there, yeah.
How about Australia?
I actually went to Australia for the weekend. I know, it's crazy. We went and we played the folk festival in Port Arlington, just across the bay from Melbourne, and it was a funny thing. We took on the festival when it was in isolation, thinking and hoping that, well, sure, we'll tack on a week or two while we go all that way. And just the schedule here in the States just closed in either side of it, and suddenly we were looking at the itinerary, and it was a flight in, do the festival, and straight back to the West Coast and on to another 3-week tour. So it was sort of crazy. And I got one extra day there because the Chilean volcano went up and all the flights were cancelled. So I got a forced day off in Melbourne, which was class. It was great. Yeah.
Eamon, how about you? Have you been? You played all. How many continents have you played?
I suppose I've done most of my traveling has been here in North America. All over the U.S. and Canada, but certainly Europe, all over
Sure.
Europe. And I have not, although I have traveled some in Asia myself, but not as not in a professional capacity,
Right.
if I could put it that way.
So tell me, I'm curious how you're received in your homeland when you play.
Well, Mick is now living back in Ireland, and I've been living in the US for 20 years now. But I love to go back and play, and any excuse I get, any chance I get to play back home, I love it, And it's in Dublin, for example, which is my hometown. There's a lot of musician friends. It's great to so a lot of the time when I'm back, the playing is often just informal, just meeting up with old friends and playing. But there are still, some great concert halls and places to perform, festivals in the summer. So, yeah.
So go ahead, Mick.
Oh, well, just know, likewise, I'd like to there's so many great musicians playing Irish music in Ireland. So it's really nice just to go home and you just sort of blend in with everyone. And as Eamon was saying, in an informal way, there's so many music sessions, impromptu sessions as well, especially off around the edge of these festivals in the summertime. And then I guess most of my professional playing has been outside of Ireland, and I sort of I like that when I go home, then I just get to play with all these amazing musicians, many of whom just have other jobs apart from music, and they just play for pleasure. And there's something really satisfying and fulfilling in playing with those people who are just playing for the love of it as well, you know.
So, Eamon, tell us a little bit about the bouzouki and what sounds it gives you that a guitar wouldn't say.
Well, it's an 8-stringed instrument. It's sort of would be, I suppose, in the mandolin family. So the strings are twinned. So there's oh, thanks. Sorry, I'm just wrapped up here. So it came into Irish music only as recently as the 1960s, and the bouzouki was originally a Greek instrument with a round back on it. Now the Irish have kind of customized it a bit to their purposes, and but it's essentially the same instrument. The way we tune it, it's like a mandolin but an octave lower, and the tuning is slightly different. What I find about it is that it's a great instrument for rhythmic playing, but also for melodic playing. So it can kind of occupy a nice middle ground between just playing chords, but also playing melodies, counter melodies. And I just find that it lends itself really nicely to the accompaniment of Irish tunes and songs. Yeah.
And so we were talking a little bit about the melodeon or the accordion, and how big a piece of Irish music would you say that is?
I suppose it's a relative newcomer within the last 100 years, I suppose, and change. It really became a lot more popular in the 1950s, and so it's pretty popular now in Irish music. As I say, it made a drive on in the 60s. Some great players like Paddy O'Brien and Joe Burke in the 50s and 60s. They were just such sweet players. I think before that, to be honest, a lot of the accordions, they weren't being. Nobody really knew. It's an Italian instrument, and it hasn't really. It never was adopted adapted into Irish music. It still is an Italian instrument, and I think a lot of them weren't really very well maintained back years ago, and they didn't. Some of them just didn't sound that great, and therefore it took Irish music a minute to warm to the accordion. But it became more refined, and the sound now is that we're tuning the accordions to is sort of unique to Irish music, I think. So, like, it's very popular. There's a lot of kids playing now to a scarily high standard in Ireland. Yeah.
So, Eamon, can you tell us the significance of the name of the band, the Alt?
Well, the Alt is a place in County Sligo on the slopes of a famous mountain there called Knocknarea Mountain, which apparently is the burial place of Queen Maeve, who was a warrior queen who's buried on the top of Knocknarea Mountain. Now, on the side of that mountain, there's a glen that's called the Alt, and apparently it had sort of healing properties, and it was a place of pilgrimage. And when John, his family are from a small village very near there called Killarney in County Sligo, and when John and Nuala and myself were rehearsing for this record, originally we did it there in that village in Killarney, and John and I, we would go for walks, and John and I would sometimes go fishing in the evenings out to the coast, and you could have a view of Knocknarea Mountain. It's a beautiful part of the country. And John just suggested that name. It's also written about by the poet Yeats. That whole country around there is real Yeats country for anyone who's a fan of Yeats. And he wrote about the Alt and about this sacred place. So, yeah, the name doesn't imply that we're alternative to anything in particular. It's just that was the name John suggested, and we liked it. Had a nice ring to it.
You know, there's another small North Carolina connection because there's a small town on the coast of North Carolina called Sligo.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew a friend who had a dog named Sligo because of that. So, how about the audience? Any questions from the audience today? Anyone?
We're trying to recall, but there was a song that was played in one of the sets yesterday about a friend who had passed away.
Oh yeah.
And we were trying to remember the name of it. It was beautiful.
Well, thank you so much. To be honest, this is the first time I ever sang that song out. And while I wrote it a little while ago, so to be honest, there is no name on it. We'll have to decide what it's called. Maybe it's, I was calling it Here's to You because of the chorus, you know, but I found that John Doyle, he was calling it In Your Footsteps. And so there's a couple of different names floating around, but it hasn't been recorded, and hopefully maybe we'll get around to that someday. Yeah, it was fun to do it. I just figured with Eamon and John singing as well, it was really nice to get that big chorus going. So it was actually it was written for a friend of mine, Billy Clear, and there's a line in the song, dignity walked in your footsteps and pride she stepped out of the way, and when they were ready to go marching down the road, they threw those old boots, they laced up those old boots you threw away. And Billy, he had thrown away his boots on a Friday evening, anticipating that he was going to get paid, and he was finally going to buy a new pair of boots. He was a great stone man, you know, for building stone walls, and he was sort of famous in the southeast of Ireland for it. And of course, one thing led to another. They went to the pub for one drink and another, and next thing, Billy was getting in the car on Monday morning, and he still had his bedroom slippers on him, and there was no new boots at all. But he was just a hilarious character, and a very big man in every sense of the word. And so yeah, I sort of wrote the song for my friend who is his brother, and I started from his, you know, hence my brother and my friend. It's for both me and Billy's brother as well.
Thank you for sharing that. We appreciate it.
I've got a question. My grandfather's Irish. When we were kids, my grandfather's Irish, and when we were kids, he used to sing us a song called Sweet Molly Malone. Have you heard of that?
Oh, yeah.
Singing Cockles and Muscles
Yeah,
Alive, Alive.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great Dublin song, Molly Malone, and there's a statue of Molly. What's that?
It's a good song too.
Another
You want to go now? I'm kidding. That's a great song as well. Yeah, two beautiful songs. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't do that one, I'm afraid. But yeah, Molly Malone, a great song. She was a street peddler. She would sell, and the statue in Dublin at the end of Grafton Street, she's got her cart where she's pushing through the streets of Dublin. Yeah. How about it? Yeah. I don't sing it myself, but I do. I mean, I've heard many times. Oh yeah. Oh, we know we've heard them all at this point. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions? Well, you guys had mentioned you might play a song. Would you be?
Yeah, we'll do set tunes. I think.
Yeah, we'll play a little.
Let me move out of the way here.
Selection here of. I think a couple.
Yeah. I think we'll do those two jigs we talked about. As you can tell, these have been very, very well rehearsed about 5 minutes ago.
You're going to see some miraculous telepathy here. Now, this is
Well, hopefully. The first one is a tune called Podgy No Rafferty, and the second one is a tune called the Kool-Aid Jig down from the southwest of Ireland. Will I give you that?
So a lot, like I was saying, a lot of the stuff we do is vocal stuff, harmony, singing, and all that. But a huge part, of course, of both what we do in the band and also what we do when we're just out playing with friends is the dance music. So that's what you're going to hear now, just a little bit of dance music.
So if you're inspired.
Yeah. Is it on here?
Sure. I'm not sure which one's my microphone at this point, but thank you guys for coming in and for playing a little bit there for us. And I hope you enjoyed the Folk Fest in North Carolina.